tonight's forum. I want to thank you very much for being here tonight. You know, it's our responsibility as citizens to learn about the candidates, asking for our support for our vote. Events like these help us to open our minds and hear what the candidates have to say. We all know how important our school representatives are to our children's success. So it's very important that we're here tonight. Now, we may agree or disagree with each other, but it is very important that we maintain respect and a civil discourse. And I will expect nothing less from the people on the stage and the people in the audience. And I know that I won't have to say anything that you guys will remember how important it is to be civil and to be respectful. These are candidates that want to run for office. They are here tonight. And I will tell you, it is not easy to run for office, and it's not easy to hold office. So however it turns out, whatever comes out of this, I know that you will be very grateful that both of you are here today to share their ideas and their thoughts with you. I want to thank the PTA from Harper Park, Cool Springs, Tolbert, and Smarts Mill for putting together tonight's event. The format will be as follows. We will do opening remarks that will go for 2 minutes. Each question will be asked, and it will be alternated who will go first, and that will be 2 minutes, and then there will be a closing remark at 2 minutes. We will determine who will start with the toss of a coin. So again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you ladies for your commitment and for your energy and excitement, and I look forward to hearing all of your answers to the questions. So I'm going to ask Erika, since you're closest to me, heads or tails?
Heads.
Heads, okay. Heads. I'm going to throw flips. It's like a football game, yeah. Okay. Okay.
There we go, we got it.
As heads. Okay. So, Erika, you may either speak first, or you may defer and let Lauren go first, and however you want to do it.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds really loud, so hopefully you don't, it's not too loud for you. My name is Erika Ogedegbe. I am a candidate for re-election for the seat here in Leesburg. I was elected last year during a special election and have been serving on the board for almost a year now. By way of introduction, just to give you a little bit of information about myself, I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, which is a community that is talked about very similarly in the way that people talk about Loudoun as being a very affluent community. It is, but not everybody's affluent. So my mother chose that community because of the excellent school system and because she was looking for a diverse community that would be welcoming for our family. When we chose Loudoun, we were looking for the same thing. I'm the product of public schools myself and was looking for a community that had great schools and would be welcoming for my family as a multiracial family, and we found that in Leesburg. I have 3 children, 2 of whom have graduated. They're actually in medical and law school now, and I have a 3rd kid who is in middle school still. So we have a big gap in our children. I'm running because I believe in public education. I think that public schools are the thing that brings many families into this area. We need to support our schools. We need to support our teachers and give them that support and make sure that they want to stay with us to give the best that they can to our students in the classroom. And we have a big job to do. We have 83,000 almost students to respond to their individual educational needs, and we have to support our students and work with our families. So I'm interested in hearing what questions we have tonight and hope that I can get to know a little bit more about you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you. And I must apologize. The most important thing I needed to do was introduce the candidates. Eric, this is the Leesburg candidates for school board, and Erika Ogedegbe just spoke, and Lauren Shernoff will speak next for 2 minutes. I'm sorry, ladies, I should have introduced you first.
Hi, I'm Lauren Shernoff. I'm an educator in our Loudoun County Public Schools, and I'm a mom, and obviously I'm running for school board. again, we're going again. So I am coming to this table tonight to you to talk about what's happening in our Loudoun County Public Schools and to represent that voice. I think we are at a crossroads here and we really need some change. I've lived in Leesburg for the last 9 years and I have worked in Loudoun County for the past 7. Before that, I was in Fairfax County and I taught kindergarten and first grade, my first love, down on the carpet with our little guys. And now I work in literacy and I'm at Guilford Elementary this year. I'm at a school-based job. And so every single day I go to our classrooms and I work with our teachers and our students and we see the challenges, but we also have lots to celebrate here in Loudoun. And I want to bring that voice too, because I think that sometimes gets lost. And so we have a lot to be proud of, but we have a lot of areas to work on. And so as a mom with my students here at one at Harper Park and one right across the way here at Tolbert Elementary, I'm personally invested. And I am even more invested because I have skin in the game working in our schools. And I truly believe that experience is unmatched when we look at this race and when we look at Leesburg and what candidates bring to the table, because we need to be rooted in what is actually happening in our schools and authentically engaging the stakeholders that matter. And that's the educators, the students, and the families. And so that's what I bring to the table. A lot of experience, a lot of personal experience, but also a lot of knowledge in the different areas, understanding of curriculum, research, and literacy, as I've spent a chunk of my career working in literacy. So I'm excited to share with you all of that tonight. I know we have lots to cover. I'm so grateful for this experience. So thank you to the PTAs for all that you do in partnership with us in the schools.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, ladies. That was our 2-minute introduction to our candidates, and now we're going to get into the questions. And the very first question goes to Lauren. And what are the 2 or 3 strengths which our district can be proud of, and why do you see these as strengths?
Well, I'm going to go back to the stakeholders portion. I think our greatest strengths are our people. I think the people in this county are fantastic. I know that the educators that I work shoulder to shoulder with every day are amazing. They are working overtime, literally overtime, to make sure that the student needs are met. And we have a lot of diverse needs in our county. We have a wide range of economically diverse students, as well as different backgrounds that kids bring to the table. And our teachers are really striving to meet every single individual need, and they have a lot on their plates. In addition, of course, our children. Our children are incredible. They are amazing. These last few weeks getting back into the school year, it's just such a time of excitement. It is such a new beginning, and everyone is always rallying around the children and what they bring to the table. And I'll tell you, this process can be tough as a candidate, but our children, they're extremely empathetic. They are so loving and positive, and being around them, it is infectious and it is inspiring. And so from our littlest kindergartners all the way to our graduating seniors, I just think we have so much to celebrate when it comes to the achievement of our students and the work that's being done in our classrooms. And last but certainly not least is our families and our communities. I think about this event tonight. I'm on the board of the PTA at Tolbert Elementary, and PTAs are a huge part of our community, and parents are a huge part of our community and our families. And the strength of a public school comes from that partnership of educators and children and teachers and the community rallying around each other to help find success for our students. And what's more beautiful than that? I've dedicated my life to that partnership, my career. It's really important to me that we get this right, because we are at a crossroads, and we do have a decision to make, and we are facing a lot of division, and so I want to look to the positives to bring us together.
Thank you. Erika, the question, did you want it again?
No, I've got it. Thank you so much. So I would say first we have a very engaged community and a lot of parents who are passionate about wanting the best for their children. And I think that that raises a lot of questions, and there are divisions in the way that we think we want to approach that, but at the end of the day, we all want the best education for our children and for the students in our community. So I think that that is a strength. Despite the fact that there are challenges and sometimes we have different opinions. In my day-to-day work life, I work in higher education And I will say that some of our best work happens when I'm working with people that have various opinions. When we have different strengths and opinions, we bring them to the table. We often come up with the best possible solutions because of the diversity of that thought. I will say also we have amazing, talented, and dedicated teachers and educators who are coming every day and giving their heart and soul to our students because they entered the field of education because they care about doing their best for the next generation. And we are lucky to have the teachers that we do. And I will say obviously, and I think it's hard to come second because you often have the same thoughts, but we do just have amazing students and children in our community who are learning and growing, and it is our job to do everything that we can to help ensure that they get all that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one, Erika, you start this one. What do you see as the current challenges facing public education in Loudoun County Public Schools?
So I think some of the challenges that we're facing are similar to other school systems. We are facing, as other areas are, a shrinking number of teachers who are entering the teaching field. There was a recent study that said there were 35 fewer students entering teacher preparation programs, which is exacerbated by the fact that we also have problems with recruiting and retaining teachers who have already gone through those programs. That is certainly a challenge, and we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we have comprehensive benefit programs and so forth that will help keep our teachers engaged and feeling like they are being compensated in a way that they should be, but also making sure that our working environment for them is a positive one and they're seen and respected, and that we're not exacerbating what's happening where we're, in some cases, I think there are conflicts that are happening sometimes between teachers and families that I think that we can be working on. I will say also, we have, although we are well-funded and a well-resourced county, we have issues within the Commonwealth of Virginia around the level to which we're funding public education. And so my hope is that the legislature will address some of the concerns around that. And then finally, I would say we still have a ways to go in terms of building back trust and to do that, we need to continue to work on communicating more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, do you need the question?
Give it one more time.
What do you see as the current challenges facing public education in the Loudoun County Public Schools?
I wish I had more time than 2 minutes, but I'm going to break it down into 3 things. It's actually very similar to what my opponent said. The first is achievement. I'm really, really concerned about achievement of our subgroup data. I've spoken about this at length on my platform, on my website. I see it every single day in the classroom. Our data overall, we're not back to pre-pandemic numbers quite yet, but we're getting there overall. But when you lift the veil and you pull back the curtain and you look at our special education students, you look at our English language learners, and when you look at our economically disadvantaged students, the drop-off is staggering. And I'm not okay with it. I don't think any of us should be okay with it. If all students matter and all students need to reach their potential, then we have a lot of work to do in the trenches for our students who are below grade level and that are continuing to fall behind because their growth is not keeping up. So that is something that is a huge challenge, and I know educators are collaborating daily around solving those issues, but we have got to come together as a community to really address it. We can't just say, oh, we're better than the next guy. I'm not really worried about the next guy. I'm running for school board in Loudoun County Public Schools. That's what matters to me. That's where my kids are, and that's where I work. So that's number 1. Second is teacher morale. We are losing teachers at an alarming rate. The school that I work at lost almost half its staff over the summer. That's a lot of people. So when you have that turnover and you want the consistency with the expectations for the students, that becomes extremely difficult. And I don't think it's about pay, and I'm sure it will come up later. I really do think it's about support, and I think it's about trust at the highest levels. And that brings me to my last point, and that is trust and transparency and accountability. The chasm is so wide right now that I don't know how we bridge it, except to have someone who wants to bridge it, who wants to come together, and that is what I want for our schools. It certainly is not about hiding and secrecy.
Thank you. The next question, Lauren, you start this one. Do you feel technology is being appropriately used at the elementary level with Loudoun County Public Schools? Why or why not?
This is an interesting question because I just came from running a science club after school where with 5th graders, we used Play-Doh to make the Earth's mantle, crust, and core to get them hands-on, and they laughed at me at first. They were like, "You gotta be kidding me, Mrs. Shernoff." I'm like, "I'm a kindergarten teacher, guys. We're gonna do this." So I think technology definitely has its place in Loudoun County Public Schools and in learning. I think we became overly reliant on it during the pandemic. Honestly, I have actually tried to stay away from my computer as much as possible after teaching virtually for a year. But I believe that I think the students are very savvy, and we live in a very technological age. It's important that kids have these skills. That is an essential part. And something that's really exciting is the computer science standards that have been introduced in Loudoun County Public Schools, and I am just really encouraged to see the excitement around coding and robotics and the different programs that we have. So yes, I think we are using it well. I think it definitely has its place, but in my heart of hearts, I'm old school. I really also do not want to see it replacing real books. We are seeing a real struggle with students with their reading. They need to hold real books. They need to read actual text. And sometimes it's important to get out the Play-Doh. I think it has a place, you know, and I say that facetiously, but it's true. I think some of those pencil paper, you know, my daughter, we work on math problems, pencil paper, because sometimes that computer stuff, it just isn't clicking. So I think, again, it's always going to be about balance, but I do think we have a good place here. We certainly have all the bells and whistles. We have Promethean boards in my school sitting in the hallway, not being used because we don't have enough classrooms for them. So yes, we have it. We definitely use it, but I think everything in moderation, and you know, I really want to see kids authentically engaging real learning.
Thank you. Erika?
Thank you so much. So I think there is obviously a need to make sure that our students are learning about emerging technologies and have that familiarity so that they are prepared for what they will face when they're going to college or in the workplace as they're older. But there are some things that I think that are lost, and you know, maybe some of this started before the pandemic, but certainly going virtual meant that everything needed to be transitioned to working on their Chromebooks. And I think having the universal access to Chromebooks is really important, but there are some things that are lost when you can't put pen to paper. So specifically when students are learning to write, making sure that we have more opportunities for that brain and hand connection to ensure that they are making that connection and it's not just all typed on the Chromebook. So again, there is a place for technology, but I would agree there's also a place to go back to basics and make sure that we're connecting directly with things as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one, Erika, is a very important question. We started the school year with over 100 open teaching positions. What do you think Loudoun County Public Schools need to do to recruit and retain highly qualified educators?
That's a great question, and it is a very important priority to make sure that we are filling the positions that are vacant and keeping the teachers that are in those positions. We need to start kind of backing up from the point of starting a semester or an academic year without the teachers to make sure that our recruitment plans are comprehensive and we're trying to make sure we have that pipeline of applicants. One of the programs that I was most excited to learn about in more detail over this past year is the Teacher Cadet Program, which has young people, high school students who are interested in the teaching profession, and encouraging them to pursue that when they go to college. And one of the students that I met who was a student school board member over this last year graduated from the teacher cadet program, and before she finished high school she had a signed commitment letter for employment once she was done with college. So I would say that's one important part of doing this. As we are making adjustments to cover these classrooms, we are also, as a board, asking questions and making sure that we are still within our teaching standards that are published, to make sure that we don't have overcrowded classrooms. But ultimately, we need to make sure that we're keeping the teachers that we have so that we don't have an even bigger problem. Thank you.
Lauren?
I was hoping I get to expand on this. I'm going to lead with saying, who better to support teachers than a teacher? I really believe that the leadership that we have now is very disconnected from what is actually happening in our schools. And I think that goes for the school board as well as the admin, the highly paid admin staff that work in Ashburn. I think that there's a big distrust there. I don't think it, I know it. Teachers voice it all the time. This is about value. This is about people feeling valued in the profession that they have given their lives to and that they've chosen. You know, teachers, it's hard work, but I say this all the time, it's cheesy, but it's hard work. It really is. You know, people don't go into being a teacher to be a millionaire. It's just not gonna happen. But you get back so much every single day because you get to see the product of what you're doing right in front of you. And it's extremely rewarding, but it also requires a ton of support. And I believe that one of the main issues and one of the root causes is that we have lost that value. I think that teachers are overloaded with a ton of initiatives. It's always about the next best thing in Loudoun. What's the next vendor? What's the next logo? What's the next hot ticket item that's going to put Loudoun on the map? I think right now we're being put on the map for the wrong things. And I absolutely believe that if we can redirect our perspective back to listening to our teachers, what do they need? They want to teach. They want to work with their students on targeted instruction. They do not want the distractions. And this politically driven culture has created a culture of fear where people feel like they may have retribution for speaking out. So when you have a group of people who feel undervalued and they feel silenced, that's why they're leaving. So while we may claim to be an employer of choice, I want to actually be an employer of choice.
I'm going to take a little privilege here and ask a follow-up question to your answers. Do you, and I'll ask Lauren first and then
Sure.
Erika, but do you think salaries have anything at all to do with recruitment and retaining of highly qualified teachers?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Kelly. I get asked this all the time. Everybody's like, do you want to be paid more? Well, of course, we're human. We want to be paid more, right? That's not the issue. I actually don't think pay is the issue. I think we're pretty competitive here in Loudoun, and I think we should remain competitive in Loudoun. That should always be the standard. I think, you know, we need to make sure that we are paying our teachers extremely well and making sure that that's part of the equation. But I actually don't think that that's the core reason. I think the other reasons I mentioned, having too much on our plates, just so much time taken away from instruction with the testing that's required. I mean, I can't even tell you right now, we're just drowning in testing with these kids. And it's not that the data is not important, it's super important, but we need to make sure that we're using our time wisely and that the most highest leverage person is their teacher, is in the room with them teaching. And I also think that it is, I said this already, but it's about the distrust that's going on with the leadership. And I think that, you know, what we really need to look at is prioritizing positions at the highest admin level that move the needle for students, because that's really what this is about. I think every person that's in a building that is supporting classrooms, that we should be seeing what they're doing to move student outcomes, because that's ultimately what this is about. So no, I don't think it's solely about pay. I think we need to stay competitive, but I really truly believe it's about value. It's about really feeling like I'm coming to work and I'm doing something and I'm supported to do so. And that they have the freedom to be able to do that and to really target the needs of their students.
Erika?
Thank you. So I agree, it's definitely not just about salary, but that said, we do have some issues specifically in the middle pay bands for our salary scales where we are not competitive with our neighboring school systems, and we do lose teachers because of that. So I know that there has been some progress made over the last couple of years where we are competitive in some areas, but there are some points, and I've heard specifically from teachers who are in that range where they're wondering why are they paid so much less than teachers in some of our neighboring school systems. I also agree that teachers need to feel valued, not only by their school-based administration and the administration overall, and I also think though we need to as a community think about the ways in which we are speaking about and speaking to our teachers. I think as parents we can also help to support the feeling that teachers have in their school buildings to make sure that they are seen as the experts that they are in educating our students. And unfortunately, sometimes there are teachers who feel like they aren't getting that support from families because they are I think just facing a lot of pressure in ways that isn't conducive, and I think the other thing that would help is also just from a behavioral standpoint, making sure that when there are issues in the classroom that we're coming together and addressing those as a team between the teachers and the parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, how can schools address the learning needs of the diverse students?
Oh, okay. I touched on this before, but subgroup data is a huge issue here in Loudoun, and we need to be looking closely at it. So I have a couple of solutions that I think we could try. One of the things I mentioned earlier is in conjunction with the teachers, and I think it's about streamlining initiatives. I don't know if you know this, but in the elementary school day, there are not enough physical minutes in the school day to teach the required curriculum. That's real. There isn't. With transitions and kids going to lunch and putting on coats and going to recess in the elementary level, you actually cannot teach the curriculum in the given time. We need to start there. So all these things that we're bringing into Loudoun all the time that are eating up the minutes of our day are taking away from the teacher's ability to focus on the core academic subjects and the intervention piece, which is a required block of time that students below grade level need. And in some of our schools, that's 80% of the population. At my school, it's 80% of the population that is below grade level. So you can imagine when those minutes go away, that's one huge issue. So I would really, as a leader, I would really like to look at what are we teaching, where is its purpose, is it research-based, is it systematic, is it explicit, is it what our kids need to thrive, and are we meeting all those individual needs? Another thing is, I think that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have fidelity of the good curriculum that we do have. We're getting ready for a huge literacy transition here per the Virginia Literacy Act. Everyone will be having a new curriculum next year, 24-25, required by the state to have a new literacy curriculum. That curriculum is only going to be as good as it is supported. And so we need fidelity across our buildings. We need to make sure that teachers have what they need to execute those lessons with precision, and also have the flexibility to make the changes where they need to meet the needs. And also just continue collaboration, but I'm out of time.
Thank you. Erika?
Thank you. So I think, again, there are many things I would say that we agree with, and we've had this conversation before. I think consistency of experience across the school system is very important and also a challenge. One of the things that if we look at the data, we want to make sure that we have consistency across our county, across all students, that we are addressing discrepancies in outcome based on different characteristics of students. They should not be a way in which we can predict outcome. We need to look at schools where they are having more success and then bring forward those methodologies, whether it's teaching approaches or methodologies, and share those ideas across the school system, and then provide support to our teachers in our schools to make sure that they are, again, adequately resourced and staffed. I will say one of the important aspects, speaking of the change in the literacy program, will be making sure that we are selecting a curriculum which is not only meeting all of the needs for the new approach to literacy, but is also something that is fairly straightforward to adopt. I think one of the things that I enjoyed hearing about recently was at Catoctin Elementary School. They came to a recent school board and were talking about their process in adopting UFly over the last year and a half or so. And one of the things that they mentioned was how easy it was to adopt. And so as we're evaluating curriculum for early literacy, that adoption is something we need to consider.
Thank you. Erika, thousands of sexual assaults on campus, K-12 campuses are reported in each year in Virginia. What needs to be done within Loudoun County Public Schools to prevent sexual assaults on our campuses?
So this is something in Loudoun that is obviously close to everybody's heart and thinking about. And it is, I appreciate the question because it highlights that this is an issue across Virginia, and it's an issue across the nation. Last year, shortly after I joined the board, the special grand jury report from the 2021 sexual assaults was released, and we were in the midst of a very reactive response in terms of just reviewing policies and thinking about procedures. And it struck me at that time that this is important. We need to do these things, but this is not getting to the heart of what we need to do in terms of preventing these incidents from happening to begin with. We need to make sure that we have norms for behavior and an understanding across the board that no means no, that consent is important and expected, and that we have a responsibility as a community to do everything that we can to reduce the incidence of dating violence and sexual assault. And this is happening, unfortunately, as Mayor Burk shared, the numbers are staggering if we look at what's happening across the Commonwealth over the last several years. This is very important to me. One of the things that I did at that time was to reach out to laws to initiate an expanded partnership to build a more comprehensive prevention program to try to address this as a community. Thank you.
The next one is for Lauren.
Okay.
Bus transportation continues to be a problem.
Do I answer about sexual assault first?
Oh, I'm sorry. You missed that one? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I did. I would like to answer it.
Okay, yes, please do. I got ahead of myself. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good. You're good. I was just like, wait, did I miss it? Did I already speak?
Yeah.
This is extremely sensitive, and I'll tread lightly. We've been through a lot here in Loudoun County Public Schools. This is personal. This isn't about the nationwide. This is happening here. It happened here. 2 girls. I have 2 daughters. 2 girls were sexually assaulted in our schools. So I'm really disappointed in the way that everything was handled. We've now seen the grand jury report, thank goodness, and finally the LCPS report came out. And my opponent last election cycle talked about wanting transparency and trust to get that report out, that would be important. So on February 14th, I was shocked when she voted no. I was shocked. And I know that releasing that report was hard, and there's a lot of sensitive things in there, but I do believe that by not being transparent and dragging it out, we may have done more harm. We've certainly done more harm in this community. I've spoken with the families. We've definitely done harm there. We need to heal big time. And I think in order to heal, it comes back to relationships. It is clear to me that the relationships between the schools and the safety county safety people in our county is broken. And so we need to restore that relationship. It cannot be political. And we need to get to some very clear protocols so that there are no holes in our policy, so that we know exactly every time 159 cases are brought up, that was in the report, that are brought to the Title IX office, that every single one is followed to the T with those protocols. We have to chart this out from beginning to end to make sure that we do not have those things. Partnering with other outside people is fine, but I don't want to be sending people to need therapy and treatment. I want them to be safe.
I do apologize again for overlooking you.
You're all
But I'm
good.
going to start with you now.
Okay, I'm ready.
Bus transportation continues to be a problem even after the staggered schedule was implemented. The staggered schedule also had unintended consequences of not having buses available for field trips and after-school program busing. How would you address the busing problems within the Loudoun County Public Schools?
So I think we need to get creative here. We need bus drivers. We got to get kids to school. That's like super important and very basic. We did have a huge falling out with the staggered start times, and here in Leesburg, that is, you talk about hot topic issues. Actually, in Leesburg, that is a hot topic. People are upset because it impacts their daily life. And some people are asking, like, well, why can't we switch it every other year? And they're saying, well, some families, that would be hard on some families. And people are like, well, it's hard on me. So whose family has more value, right? So again, this is root cause. We're talking about bus drivers. I think that we really need to think about incentivizing bus drivers and think about how we can get creative in our budget. I say this a lot, $1.6 billion, we gotta be able to do some things around here at the basic level. I think that we have enough money to incentivize our bus drivers. I've also heard that the training is extremely inconsistent. Some people that drive buses, they just kind of go through the rigmarole and then they're bus drivers, and other people are like tested and tested and tested again. That's what I'm hearing from the different people that I've spoken to. So consistency is key in Loudoun. I think we see it in other areas, but I think that that's one. And I think we need to communicate that this is an issue. I believe that we are very distracted in Loudoun County with a lot of other things. There are a lot of other topics that make the media news. Bus drivers usually isn't one of them, but it should be, because if our kids can't get to school, they can't learn. And if they're getting to school too early, they can't go on field trips. They don't have access to field trips because they can't get back in time by the time the place that the field trip has to get home in time. So we're having a staggered issue here that is, a domino effect, if you will. So I do not claim to have all the answers when it comes to incentivizing bus drivers, but I do think we need to talk to them and to make sure that they are supported and that we are recruiting them.
Thank you. Erika?
Thank you. I think part of it is incentivizing bus drivers, making sure that we have benefits and salaries that would be enticing and help us to hire more bus drivers. We have had challenges with that. I also think that it would be helpful for the bus drivers that we have to support the work that they do by having more assistance on buses. It is very hard for somebody who's actively driving a bus to also handle issues that might be happening with students in the seats behind them, and we don't want them veering off the road to address a behavioral problem, and so increasing the number of assistants on buses I think would help our bus drivers that are with us stay with us and give them that support. The other thing I wanted to mention is specifically for Leesburg, one of the things that we did, as Mayor Burk mentioned, is create the staggered schedules, which has resulted in about half of the elementary schools system-wide to go to an earlier start time. It's about, on average, it's about 30 minutes earlier, but I would say that myself, having a 12-year-old who is not a morning person, I don't have the early start time, but I can imagine how disruptive and difficult that is. I've talked to parents many times, multiple families, about how disruptive this early schedule has been for their families and for their students, and just asking for relief and to have a different schedule going forward. So it's something that I have been advocating for. I will say that this was not a decision that was brought to the board for a decision. This kind of goes within that operational realm of decision, but it is something that I have shared. I think we need to address and make sure we don't have these early times next year.
Thank you. The next question, Erika, what are your thoughts on protecting our most vulnerable youth, the LGBTQ plus community?
So we are a public school system, and we are obligated to make sure that we are protecting and welcoming all of our students, and that includes our LGBTQ students. So we have policies in place that were passed a couple of years ago that serve to make sure that we have anti-discrimination policies in place for both students and staff. And it is important that we maintain and have a welcoming and safe environment for all of our students. If students don't feel welcome, safe, and seen, they can't learn. Thank you.
I have been meeting with a lot of families of kids that are impacted by this, that are LGBTQ+, and I have been having discussions and really finding out, asking one question: what is your experience? What do you need from us? It starts there. There's a lot of noise around this topic, and advocacy is important, and I realize that. I'm advocating for many things myself. But experience is important, and I think we need to start there with our students. I agree. All students need to be protected in our public schools. They need to come to school feeling safe and being safe. They need to have access to learning. Something that I'd really like to pursue is, as a leader on the school board, is how is this community achieving? We don't have that data as a community. I know it's a subgroup, it exists. We have policies in place to protect them in other ways, but I'm not hearing anything about their achievement. Schools are in the business of achieving, giving kids the opportunity to achieve, to learn. So I would really like to see what those numbers are, because I think that would be very telling. I don't think we're talking enough about the learning that these kids are doing. So that's one piece. I know we talk about the social emotional piece for them quite a bit, and it is of utmost importance. And certainly there are unique challenges in our building that we have to come together to solve. And I think that those dialogues really bring us to a precious place, because it brings us to a place where we really see them as human beings, and that's what we are. We're human beings. And we care about one another, and we're all having unique struggles, and we're all on a different path. And for me, it's in learning environment, it is about those two things. It's about being safe and being able to learn. And so those are the two priorities that I have, and I want to make sure that we continue to pursue that.
Lauren, a parent asks, quote, "Currently, I'm concerned about Loudoun County Public Schools truly preparing my children for an education beyond Loudoun County Public Schools. Students are allowed to retake tests, there are no finals, classwork is accepted at any time. How do you feel Loudoun County Public Schools can better prepare students for higher education?"
Number one thing that comes up at the doors in Leesburg, number one thing, without a doubt, is our grading and assessment policy 5030 that allows for those things: retakes, taking formative assessments again, turning work in late. I have a couple of views on this. One, I think that second chances are always important. We work with kids. Sometimes kids have a bad day. My daughter left yesterday very flustered because she forgot her Chromebook and got halfway to school. She probably wasn't going to perform as well. So maybe we need to give some grace. I think second chances are super important, and we have to find a way to support all of our students. But that does not mean that we cannot have high expectations for all. Because let me tell you about our teachers and what they can do to raise the bar for kids and to make sure that they are achieving. They are super talented and very gifted, and they are very dedicated to making sure that that happens. So we need to have high expectations. So I think 5030 needs a total revamp. I really do. I think we need to look at it in focus groups. I think we need to talk to our middle school teachers and our high school teachers who are struggling with this policy. It is putting double work on them to have to create retakes, to have to allow for grading floors, and for turning in work late. I talk to parents who are worried about their kids being ready for college. I don't know that they are with this policy. We also have a problem with chronic absenteeism, which I'm guessing might come up because it's kind of a big deal right now, but chronic absenteeism, if you don't have to be accountable for your grades, why go to school? What's the big deal, right? So I think that is all playing into it. And I will say this policy has come up for review in the last year, and my opponent sits on that committee, and it sat silent for 90 seconds. Not a single school board member brought it up to be reevaluated. It at least needs to be looked at. The community is asking about it. I know, I'm talking to the community. It comes up time and time again, so we need to revisit.
Thank you. So I think that when this policy was first put into place, the goal was to make sure that we were providing ample opportunity for students who are struggling to succeed. And sometimes that does mean that you get a second chance, or you have that opportunity to review something again and learn the material. The end of the day, the goal as we're teaching students isn't just that good, it's not just that grade, it's that they are learning material and ready for the next assignment or the next grade level. And so making sure that they're able to successfully learn and demonstrate their knowledge before moving forward onto the next thing, I think is something that we need to continue to offer opportunities for. I would say that this is not the number one thing that comes up on the doors that I'm knocking, so I think that that's interesting. I know that there's a lot of interest in looking at this. I do think that if we were to revisit this, we would want to make sure that we did that in a way where we had a fuller evaluation of what that impact is, get the opinions of the teachers and families to make sure that we are getting a holistic perspective. I have talked about this with somebody recently who was really strongly believes that this is helpful, again, for the students who are struggling, not to give them something that they don't deserve. We're not talking about just giving someone a pass or something, but really giving students who are having a hard time that opportunity to succeed.
Well, Erika, the next question is, with the update of the Virginia Department of Education policy on chronic absenteeism, which affects school credentialing, how would you propose Loudoun County Public Schools address chronic absenteeism?
So I think it starts with engaging with families and having, when there are students who are not coming to school, making sure that there's an engagement and trying to understand what those reasons are, and then supporting the students and the families to help them get to school. There are a number of reasons why we have students who aren't coming to school. Some of them are things like family obligations or work commitments that unfortunately some students have that interfere with their ability to go to school. So we do have programs that allow for flexible schedules for students. That specifically Roby, for example, has a more flexible schedule, but even in our other high schools where this is, I think, more of an issue, there is the ability to work with school-based administration on flexible schedules when they're necessary. I think that it is also, it's a community outreach and communication approach that will help with this as well. And then I've heard there has been some concern, and this has been talked about with administration, just making sure that families are making, I think, just choices that consider the students' continuity in class. There are sometimes families who choose to pull students out for travel or other priorities, and just making sure that school is considered first when we're making our plans for families.
Thank you. Lauren?
Sure. Well, the first thing is we're in a step in the right direction because it's on the radar. So if you didn't know that back in April, absenteeism became one of the 9 indicators for a accreditation. So when accreditation is on the line, which impacts school funding, you better believe people are gonna pay attention. So I think that that's the first thing. We're on the map. People are aware. I also sit on the Advocacy Commission of Youth for Leesburg. I was appointed by the Board of Supervisors to be on that committee, and every year they pick a focus. This is their focus. So all eyes are on a solution-oriented path to getting kids back in school, because that's what we want. I think this stems all the way back to the pandemic. We really devalued in-person learning when we were home for so many months. And so I think that that's kind of where this started. The next piece, though, is really interesting. It's interesting to me that 74% of middle schoolers and high schoolers who are chronically absent receive 0 D's or F's. So this goes back to what I said about the high expectations. If you have to be accountable for your work and your learning, you will be in school. Now, I say that with respect to, there are sensitive cases. There are kids that are sick, that are chronically ill, that miss. There are kids with socioeconomic barriers that keep them from getting to school. We need to look at those things on a case-by-case basis. Certainly mental health also plays into this. School needs to be a place where kids can thrive, where they don't feel afraid, where they don't feel like they can't be successful, because that is also important for kids accessing school. So I think awareness is important, I think communication, but I think at the root of it, we have some policy work to do. We have some things that we need to set straight in terms of making it clear that when you come to school, there are expectations, and when you don't, there are consequences, and you will be held accountable, because that's the real world. So that's where I'd like to start in really looking at solutions.
Thank you. Lauren, we continue to not have enough substitute to fill the positions on a regular basis. Why do you think that we can't fill these positions? And as a school board member, what can be done to improve this situation to get more substitutes into the buildings?
Thanks for the question. So the HRTD committee put out some substitute data last June, I believe it was, and they said that we fill about 78.4% of our jobs each day. So that sounds pretty good, but that's 180 jobs that are left open each day. That's a lot of jobs in Loudoun County. One thing that I'm really excited about that Loudoun is doing, which doesn't get a lot of press, is the push for school-based subs. So school-based subs are exactly what it sounds like. They're people that sign up to only sub at that school, but they commit to a minimum of 3 days a week, 3 to 5 days a week. So you can imagine with that level of commitment that you're able to fill more jobs. And as far as I know, I don't think that there's a max on that. So I think that that is super awesome, because that will help us keep people, and some people like to sub at certain schools. In addition, I guess this goes back to like the, different things that we talked about with bus drivers and things. I think it's about incentives. Another tidbit is that a lot of people that are subbing are either teachers that have let their teaching license lapse because they were home with their kids, or because they retired and they want to get back in, or people that are pursuing an educational degree on the side but want to be a teacher but need the experience. So I would love to see Loudoun offer some professional development opportunities for those subs that could work towards those kinds of paths for them. That way it's a win-win, right? Like you're working in the schools and you're learning about how to become a licensed educator. So I think that that could be a good piece. Again, I think it also goes back to wanting to be a place where people want to be, where they want to work. When you have mass exodus of teachers, I don't think people are like, yeah, I'm gonna go sub, that sounds awesome. Like when the teachers don't want to be there, what does that say to our community? So we gotta turn that around. There's a lot of root causes here. There's a lot of ripple effects. So let's start working, let's really get to work around those things, and I think we can start to build back.
Thank you. So one of the barriers that I've heard about as well is our process for hiring subs, and I know that there have been some improvements lately, but it is a long process. And so we sometimes have well-qualified people who would do well in our classrooms, and it just takes a long time to be able to get into the classroom. So specifically, streamlining the hiring for re-entry of recently retired teachers who are interested in working as a substitute teacher, where they've done their service, they're retired, they don't want to work full-time anymore, but making sure that it's easier for them to come back. Right now, they basically go through as if they're a new hire, and that takes some time. We did recently recently actually increase our daily rates for our long-term subs, and so we are at this point the best paying, and again, it doesn't all come down to pay, but it certainly helps, and so the hope is that that helps to continue to attract people to apply for the positions. And I think those are the main things, and then, yeah, those are the main things. Go ahead.
Well, ladies, our time is just about up, and we have so many more questions to ask, and I think there's an expectation that you will go to the library and do a meet and greet, so individuals could ask individual questions. I know I had many more, and would love to have heard your answers. But again, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the PTAs and thank all the candidates. The two of you did a very good job. Our democracy at the local level is an important part of our governing, and we need good people to represent us. And I hope this was helpful to you all. And now, Lauren, you get 2 minutes for closing, followed by Erika.
Thank you. I have been a public educator for the last 16 years, and in all my years, I honestly have never experienced anything quite like what is happening in our Loudoun schools now. How did we get here? It's leadership. It's leadership rooted in politics, secrecy, and broken promises. And it's leadership that has stayed disconnected from the daily lives of our schools and our communities. At this most basic level, this is about our kids. As a mom, I love my kids, but as an educator, I love yours. And I will lead with them as my focus. My opponent likes to use the slogan, "Keep Loudoun Blue." It's all over her social media accounts. I have no problem with people having personal political preferences, but the school board serves all students, and our children do not fall into one political party or another. It's time for us to stop taking sides and trade it in for working side by side. I'll close with a story. Yesterday, I worked with a 4th grader named Edward on a reading assessment that assesses fluency and how many words per minute you can read and what accuracy level. Edward really struggled in this area last year, but when he finished yesterday, he looked at me and said, "How did I do? How did I do?" He wanted to know his progress. Well, Edward jumped from a 77 word per minute count to 120 with a 92% accuracy rate, which is far and above anything he did last year. He just beamed at me. He said, "I'm so proud. I've been working with my teachers and I worked so hard and pushed myself to reach my goal." And then something amazing happened. He looked at me and said, "Can I set a higher goal next time?" "Yes, of course you can." I tell you this story because I want to follow Edward's lead. I have big goals for LCPS and I know that we can achieve them. Come alongside me. Let's do it together.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that, first of all, thank you again to the PTAs for organizing this opportunity to meet all of you and for all of you who are showing up here and obviously have a strong interest in the choice for our schools and for the outcomes for your students. I, like you, am a parent with kids who've been in the schools. I've been an LCPS parent now for 21 years since we first moved to this area. And when I started speaking, it was the schools that brought us here. In my day-to-day work, I've worked in higher education for most of my career, and I, in the beginning, was working in student-facing roles and customer service, and for the last several years have worked on projects that have me working with stakeholders and colleagues and students across the institutions where I work. And we have varying opinions on how to do things and how to approach projects, but I will say that it is that diversity of opinion and experience that helps us move forward and understand our needs and come to the best solutions. We have a lot of challenges in our schools that we need to continue to work on and do better for. I am standing up to serve Loudoun because I understand our schools are so important for our community, and I believe that it is important that we have welcoming and inclusive schools that will offer the best for all of our students. So I thank you for your time.
Again, thank you, ladies. Appreciate your efforts, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank all of you for being here tonight. You did a great job. I appreciate it. I think now you ladies are heading over to the library, and we have a 15-minute break.